What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Today's episode is going to be brought to you by our title sponsor, and that is none other than Mystery Ranch, built for the mission. And they make arguably the most comfortable and well-built durable packs in the fire game. But not only that, they make a ton of other load-bearing solutions. So go over to www.mysteryranch.com and check out their full line of load-bearing essentials. But while you're at it, check out the Backbone series and the Backbone series scholarship. It's pretty awesome, and it's highlighting some of the stories of you folks out there on the line and what you're experiencing out there in the line of duty. It's pretty awesome. And check this out. For those men and women out there on the line that want to go above and beyond, well, you can win one of these $1,000 Backbone series scholarships just by submitting your story. If you're selected, well, hey, it's simple as that. The grant's all yours. It's pretty awesome. And I just want to highlight the fact that they are giving back to the fire community immensely. And they're doing it just without taking any credit for it or really even publicizing it. They're just doing their thing. They're being silent professionals about it. I love that about them. But I definitely want to highlight their accomplishments and their dedication to the fire community. So if you guys want to win one of these scholarships or check out the rest of their load-bearing essentials, don't hesitate to go over to www.mysteryranch.com and check them out. The Anchor Point Podcast is also going to be brought to you by our premier coffee sponsor, and that is none other than Hot Shot Brewery. It's kick-ass coffee for kick-ass cause, and a portion of the proceeds will always go back to the Wildland Firefighter Foundation. But they don't just stop at kick-ass coffee for kick-ass causes. They make a full line of Wildland Firefighter-themed apparel and all of the tools of the trade to get your morning started off right. So if you're looking for an AeroPress or a t-shirt or, I don't know, a pour-over system, well, look no further than www.hotshotbrewing.com. And while you're at it, check this out. Hot Shot Brewery supports the Anchor Point Podcast by slinging some of our merch. So if you want to get your hands on one of those fire-themed tees or one of those Band of Brothers tees, well, go over to www.hotshotbrewing.com and check all of it out. It's awesome. The Anchor Point Podcast would also like to give a quick little shout out to our buddy Booze over at the Ass Movement. And if you guys don't know what the Ass Movement stands for, well, it's called the Anti-Surface Shitting Movement. And I don't know about you, but there's nothing more that I hate than going to my favorite trail, favorite camping area, or favorite fly fishing hole and finding a human turd that's gift wrapped in toilet paper. It's disgusting and it needs to stop. But check this out. There is a solution to this. So if you go over to www.thefirewild.com and check out the Ass Movement, you can get all of your poo-bearing propaganda needs from that website. It's awesome. They have it all. They have stickers, patches. Hell, they even have a turd trowel in case you have a problem pooper on your crew. So once again, go over to www.firewild.com and check out the Ass Movement. And last but not least, the Anchor Point Podcast is going to be brought to you by the Smokey Generation, also known as the American Wildfire Experience. If you guys don't know what that is yet, well, go over to www.wildfireexperience.org and check it out. It's basically a digital catalog, a digital archive of sorts of wildland firefighting stories from across the world dating back to the 1940s. It is pretty awesome. And in fact, today on the show, we have a recipient of one of those Smokey Generation grants. So if you guys want your opportunity to win one of these grants, go over to www.wildfireexperience.org and check out the Smokey Generation. It's pretty damn awesome. Bethany, you have an awesome organization over there. Keep it up. Thank you for what you're doing. The views and opinions of this podcast do not reflect the views and opinions of the United States government, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Defense, the Department of Agriculture, the United States Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or any private, municipal, county, or state firefighting organization, any law enforcement agency, any medical provider, or any contractor employed by any federal agency. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Hope everybody is doing well. And yeah, to all my fellow unskilled laborers out there, I hope you guys are staying safe and doing the best you can with this very simple job that we do. Yeah, see what I did there? That comment really struck a nerve. But I said my piece on my video, and yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. But hope everybody's doing well. With that being said, it is this episode actually is going to be recorded on the 4th of July. So all those folks out there, if you got the day off, well, hope you're celebrating your freedom and partying it up. But for those folks on the line, happy 4th of July to you. Today on the show, we've got a very special guest. We've got the gentleman behind Veterans in Fire. And now if you guys don't know what Veterans in Fire is all about, well, it's an organization, a volunteer organization, I guess you can call it, that matches people basically with a DD-214 and a resume to fire careers. It's pretty badass. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my good friend, Mr. Blake Toth with Veterans in Fire. Welcome to the Anchor Point. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Anchor Point Podcast. Today on the show, I've got my good friend Blake Toth. What's going on, dude?
Hey, not much, man. It's good to be here. It's good to finally meet you. You know, we've been talking for a while now, probably well over a year. I think we've been, one, trying to make this work, but two, just have sort of known each other. So, I mean, I think it's good to finally get out here and meet you. Be face to face is awesome.
Oh yeah, man. Thanks for making the trip down to Reno, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's 6 a.m, like I was saying, and thanks for making it out, especially with the change of plans, man.
Yeah, it was pretty sudden, but you know, hey, we got to get it in, and you know, whatever works, right? We got to make happen. So here we are. Hell
yeah, man. And yeah, you're going rafting today?
Yeah, I'm going rafting for the first time, or kayaking, I guess is.
Oh, kayaking.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So, you know, I've kayaked in lakes and stuff, never down rapids and rivers. So, you know, we'll see how that goes.
Just make sure you wear a helmet, man. Yeah. Especially on the American river there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nutty. So tell me about yourself, dude.
So I'm from Maine originally. That's where I grew up. You know, after high school, I went straight into the military. I was 6 days after I graduated, I think. So that was, you know, pretty fast to do that. Turned 18 in boot camp. So, you know, that was a good birthday.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. But yeah, so pretty much, you know, I played football in high school. I always sort of knew that college wasn't necessarily the direction for me. And so I guess I enlisted in the Marine Corps in my junior year going into my senior year. So, you know, that was actually kind of nice because while people were rushing around, you know, doing college essays and applying different places, whatever, waiting to hear back from schools, you know, I already knew where I was going.
Yeah.
So I knew on June 17th, I'd be, you know, stepping on the yellow footprints of Parris Island. So on June 17th, that's exactly where I was 6 days after graduation. And you know, the rest is sort of history from there.
Nice, man. So what was your MOS in the Marines? You said the Marines, right?
Yeah. So my MOS is 6174, which is Huey crew chief.
Okay.
Basically, I went in with an air crew contract to be air crew. You could end up on a few different platforms, either C-130s, 53s, Hueys, or Ospreys. You don't really know what you're going to get. You don't get guaranteed an airframe, but everybody always wants Hueys. You know, that's light attack. That's being a door gunner. That's doing all the high speed stuff. So when I went down to Pensacola for aircrew candidate school, that's where you figure out which aircraft you're going to be on. So that's when I found out I was going to be on Hueys, and I was pretty stoked on that. I think
were you just like pumped?
Yeah. You know, they told us that we were going to all be Osprey crew chiefs. So, you know, that's what everybody did not want. And
especially with the history behind that aircraft, man.
Yeah. We did not know until the day we got our orders to go somewhere else, like where we were going. So they came in and, you know, they told us we were all going out to California and we were all going to be Huey crew chiefs. And yeah, that was a pretty psyched room to be a part of.
Nice. So you got any tips for boot camp for those people that are listening that are thinking about enlisting?
You know, I would just say, you know, it's going to get worse before it gets better, but you know, it's not something that you can't do. Anybody can do it. You just got to listen to what people tell you to do, move fast, be loud, and, go day by day, meal by meal, and you'll get through it.
Nice, man. So your military experience, what was like the biggest takeaway from your military career?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway, would be that, I guess, to really just like have an open mind when you get ready to move on from something, so I guess what I mean by that is, like, the military is great. Like, that's a great place to go. That's a great way to start off your adult life. But even having a job like mine that you could look at was a pretty cool job, there still comes a point where it just becomes a job. So, for me, that's sort of exactly what happened. Like, I still have so much pride in that job. That's part of why I got out, because of course I could have just gone and done some different job.
Kind of been like a lifer.
Yeah, I could have moved around, done a couple of different things, which is what a lot of people do, which is eventually what the Marine Corps makes you do to make you a better, well-rounded Marine. But with my job, there was just so much pride associated with it that people would rather get out than sort of go do a different job. And so, I was one of those people. To this day, I would still never go in unless it was doing that job, because I did love it so much. But there was at a point where, you're no longer really progressing in your job, and it just becomes this day after day grind. And, as we know, complacency kills. So you just sort of have to ask yourself at some point, am I going to just continue to, push the inevitable further down the line, or, am I just going to pull chocks and move on and start over? And so I think a lot of people get caught up in wanting to make it a career, and, I have to hit that 20 years. I got to re-enlist. I got to go do more. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. And, that's not true. Like, your happiness isn't worth being stuck, in that repetitive cycle, doing the same things over and over again, and expecting different results.
Definition of insanity.
Yeah,
right?
It's insanity, right? And, I think for a lot of us, in fire or in the military, like, the job can start to feel like that, where you're just doing the same things over and over again, and you start asking yourself the question, for what?
Yeah.
And once you start asking that question, it's really hard to realign yourself and sort of come back from that. So once I started getting to that position where I sort of checked the boxes that I mentally wanted to check when I was going into it, I just knew that it was time to sort of start to look for different avenues and different things to try. And so once I fulfilled my first contract, I pulled chocks and got out.
Just dipped out, huh?
Yeah. It was a little sudden. I was on the fence pretty much for the entire 6 months leading up to getting out. But, I just saw that my career sort of in that job wasn't going to go much further. And I had sort of, I guess, left the impact that I wanted to leave by training people behind me who, went on to surpass anything that I ever did, which really is the greatest thing I think you can ask for, is that you had knowledge and then you pass that on. And then the people that you pass that knowledge on to, they go on to do the job better than you. And so that's sort of what happened in my case. And, that's something that I take a lot of pride in, that, those individuals that I was able to train and work together and work with, that they're better than me at my job. And that's pretty awesome to see. I don't look back on that as saying like, oh, like, that's not fair. They got to do more than me, or, they had these qualifications or that experience. I'm happy for them. And I think that's a phenomenal thing to walk away from, knowing you left something better than how you found it.
Oh yeah, man. Building that foundation for anything, whether it be fire or military or police or whatever you do, man, it's important to build that foundation and have a good, strong base and leave it better for the next generation of people that are coming through, man. Because if they don't have that quality training, well, how the hell are they going to improve at all, man? How are they going to improve on the program? How are they going to improve on the traditions that were already laid before them?
Yeah, totally. And I think in a big organizational thing like the military or fire, sometimes that can be hard to do, is leave your impact or feel fulfilled in that sense. But I think if you look at something not big picture, like you may not, change the entire organization, but if you change just those you're directly associated with, or inspire those you're directly associated with on a day-to-day basis over a period of a season, a year, a career, whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, that's an impact that's worth noting. And that's something that is really powerful to be able to say that you did and be comfortable with just making an impact on that one person, not necessarily the entire organization.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing too, is like when I was in academy, I had like no idea the influence that I had on my cadre, or not my cadre, my students when I was going through there. And like to this day, I don't know if it's the same for like your military experience, like your military bros, but they still call me and be like, hey dude, you know what? This happened and I learned a lot of shit from you. And I just want to say thank you. Like on a weekly basis, probably. And dude, I find so much like fulfillment out of that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I talked to some of my, Marine bros last night. We talk definitely on a regular basis. As, the years go on, I think you talk a little bit less and less, but, one of the really cool things about those relationships is that, it could be one day or 1 year that's gone by. And as soon as you hit that other person up or they hit you up, it's like, things pick up right where they left off.
Oh yeah.
So that's always awesome.
I guess moral of the story is though, you never know who's watching you and you never know who you're going to inspire. And you could be doing something that you totally think is lame and someone will be like, oh, fucking hey, maybe I should do that or something like that,
Yeah. Like my buddy was just telling me, that I was talking to you yesterday that, I was like, oh, I was just talking about you to, one of my buddies in fire. And he was like, oh, dude, like I was just talking about you. And it's like, I got out 4 or 5 years ago now. So like, that's just funny that you can have that sort of impact on people that 4 or 5 years after you're gone, they're still sort of carrying on, some of the things, some of those little, nuggets of knowledge that you left them.
Yeah, no, it's very true, man. So what about your transition out of the military? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah. So for me, and I think for everybody, that was something I thought I was very prepared for. I had a plan A, I had a plan B, and, I definitely was getting out pretty sure that I knew what I wanted to do, which at first was California Highway Patrol. That was like sort of what I first had my eyes set on. But then, I'd already spent the last couple of years out in California and I wanted to get back to Maine. So then I was like, all right, well, I'll get out of California. I'll go back to Maine and, I'll pursue a law enforcement career there. And I had a lot of, buddies that I grew up with that were working for the local department. I knew that would be, a good place to start. So then my eyes sort of got set on that. And then when I first got out, now with the intentions of going back to Maine, I was like, well, I'm going to drive cross country. That's a really cool opportunity that a lot of people don't get. So
drive straight across the country.
Yeah. So I decided that I didn't want to just drive straight across, that I was just going to go from San Diego up to Seattle, over to Montana, back down to, Arizona and New Mexico, then back up to the Dakotas. And I just sort of went north to south, all the way across the country.
Kind of just zigzagged yourself across the country.
Yeah. And I was doing it in I had a '05 Ford Focus. I ripped I ripped all the seats out. All that was there was a driver's seat and a little stick shift. So from the passenger seat all the way back to the trunk, like that's where I slept and, just roughed it for, it took about 3 months.
Yeah.
And that was really cool and a really eye-opening experience. And, I think for me, that sort of actually threw a wrench in my plans because I did that and I was like, wow, like I actually don't need to have all of these things that I've acquired over the years to be happy. Like I was so happy just like being nomadic and going someplace new all the time and meeting all these different people. So, as my story sort of progresses, it's funny how much that trip actually impacted, my life in the long run, because it's essentially now what I do full time.
Yeah.
But it all really just started with just sort of an idea of, let me just take a few months off in between the military and getting back to the civilian life and, see the rest of the country that I haven't seen. So basically, when I started the trip, it was funny because I feel like when you do things and you put yourself out there for these new experiences, and I think travel is a really good experience to put yourself out there and doing, I don't think you go and do things seeking to necessarily learn a lesson or have some, life-changing moment. I think you just have to continue to do things, continue to put yourself out there, continue to experience life. And then when you reflect on those experiences, that's when you can sort of look back and identify these moments that were, life-changing or inspiring in some way. And so for me, that actually came on like the 5th or 6th day of my trip, where I was in a place called Point Reyes, California.
Oh yeah. I know where Point Reyes is.
Yeah. So it's like this lighthouse, north of San Francisco, way out there on the coast. And so I was out there and I went down, checked out the lighthouse, got back to my Ford Focus. I was like cooking up some breakfast out of the trunk, and this tour bus pulled up of all these retired people. And, the vast majority of them, they couldn't go make the walk to go to the lighthouse because they were just sort of too old to do it.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting there and a couple of them started to kind of come around me and talk to me and ask me what I was doing. And I was like, oh, I'm just traveling the country, trying to see everything, whatever. And they're like, oh, I wish I could do that or whatever. And, I was like, oh, did you go like check out the lighthouse? And like, oh no, like we can't go like walk down the stairs to it or whatever. So we're just going to hang out here. And, that was just like a little thing. But, as time went on and I sort of reflected on that trip, I was like, man, like that's kind of sad that these people worked their entire lives. And then now they have the time and the money to go travel and see all these things, but they can't do them, So for me, that was a very eye-opening experience where I was like, I want to continue to do these things, even if it puts me in an uncomfortable position now, maybe financially, or maybe, I don't have like that house at 27 years old or that family necessarily, it's like, well, what I am gathering is these experiences that I can carry with me the rest of my life. And, those have their own weight and their own value that I think is very, very valuable for just helping you develop and grow into a person that, you never would have had the opportunity to if you didn't put yourself out there, at a young age. And when you're young and you have time to experience stuff and you can mess up and make mistakes, what better time to do it?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. That's another thing too, is we get so caught up in like paying the bills and, I guess you could say living life, that we don't actually stop to take the time to actually live. That's the thing, man. It's doing something like traveling across the country like you did, man. You found a lot of purpose out of that. And, yeah, a lot of people don't have that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And, that was just sort of like the beginning of where I started to just sort of live my life with that mindset of not just travel, but really of any experience where, I get that gut feeling of, I don't know about this, and, this is going to be hard. This is going to be uncomfortable. But I think the more times you get that feeling and you decide, well, I can always stop doing it. I can always go back to what's comfortable, but you just continue to take it one day at a time. You'd be surprised where you end up, 3 months later, 6 months later, 1 year later. That's why I'm sitting here right now, is because of just continuing to do things like that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man, these little inconveniences of life and these little challenges and getting outside of your comfort zone ultimately make you grow as a human.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think that you can come back and circle that all around to just fire and transitioning out of the military and getting into a job like fire, or somebody who just is fire to begin with. There's tons of uncomfortable moments in all of those things, but through those experiences, you just grow so tight with the people that you're surrounded with, and learn so much about yourself and what you're capable of, and what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy, and you continue to just learn those things about yourself. And maybe that's a career in fire, maybe that's a career in the military, maybe it's something completely different. Maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's starting a foundation. Maybe it's whatever it ends up being. I think as long as you just keep an open mind to the experiences that you have, and you work on just developing those good habits and continuing to work and improve your life and your mentality, then what your life looks like through your eyes at one moment might be completely different 3 months, 6 months down the road. But I think you just got to keep an open mind to where your life's going, because you don't want to limit yourself to any opportunity.
Oh, absolutely, man. That, and I guess it'd better prepare you, like being open to those horizons, those different horizons. I guess that makes you better prepared to handle life's inconveniences as well. So there's that also. Yeah, get outside of your comfort zone, man. But after this whole trip across the country, after your military experience, what inspired you to get into fire? Like, how'd you even come about it?
Yeah. So, I guess just sort of continuing on, so I got back to Maine, and obviously, I'm not a law enforcement officer, so that didn't work out. And that was fine. That was nothing negative. Really just what happened was, they ended up hiring somebody else, over me, and, whatever, that's fine. That person was more qualified than I was anyway. And, they're still doing it, and I don't think I would be. So, they probably made the right decision there. So that sort of propelled me into doing all these different things. So, next I delivered golf carts all around New England. So I was just driving a truck around delivering golf carts to rich people. And then, I worked as a shipwright, like building ships. I worked off the coast of Maine doing like maritime maintenance type stuff, working on docks and boat moorings, and really just like, it was a very Maine job. It was kind of just anything that had to do with the coast and the ocean.
Lobster and stuff.
Yeah, not lobster, but like, yeah, just like all sorts of just like maritime construction type stuff.
Gotcha.
And yeah, that was an interesting job for sure. A lot of really good memories, and I could have a whole podcast on just stories from that job. That job actually led me to living on a sailboat for a month.
No shit.
Yeah, which is a whole nother good story. I can hit real quick, but basically my boss was just like, hey, my buddy's sailing from Maine to Florida, do you want to join? And I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds really cool. Like, when do we leave? And he's like, oh, I leave tomorrow. And I was like, all right, cool. Like,
I'm leaving in 15 minutes. Grab your shit. Let's go.
Yeah. So, I was like, all right, yeah. I mean, like, I'm down. So I ended up like hopping on this dude's boat, like never been on a sailboat before in my life. And, 12 hours later, I'm sailing this boat at 2:00 in the morning by myself while he sleeps, just like off the coast, in New England. And so we never made it to Florida. The boat ended up breaking down in the Chesapeake Bay.
Oh shit.
Yeah. We had to like get towed to shore, and it was this whole mess. I ended up bailing, at that point and going back to Maine. But, that's just like one of those experiences, where like, you just kind of say yes. And, I learned a lot from that experience as well. And then after that, I did some cell phone tower climbing. I worked as an electrician. I worked as a government contractor doing aircraft maintenance on Hueys and Cobras, which is like, what I flew on in the military.
Kind of like A&P work.
Yeah, A&P work. And then did that for a little while. Went back. That was in Maryland. Then I went back to Maine again, worked at the local airport, working on like private jets and stuff. And then worked some other jobs in between there. I think it was somewhere between like 12 and 14 jobs in like a 2-year period.
No shit, just bouncing around, grabbing experience.
Yeah, I did some roofing, landscaping, like different construction jobs. I did all sorts of stuff. It was really just, at the time, it wasn't really about, having this, like getting right into this career job. It was working all sorts of different jobs and figuring out what I liked, what I didn't like. So then after about like a 2-year period, the girl I was dating at the time was like, hey, you really want to be a police officer, 2 years ago, like, why don't you look back into that and kind of get something more secure? And we were getting pretty serious at the time. So, I was like, hey, that's not a bad idea. So let me look into that. And so I took all the tests again, passed all the tests, started going through the process to be a police officer again. And then I got all the interviews, passed all the interviews, got a job offer. And right around the same time, that relationship ended, and, whatever, not a big deal. And then I really had to like reflect on my decision making when it came to re-pursuing law enforcement. Did I really want to do it, or was that sort of a mutual decision, between myself and another person? Which is great. That's fine. That's probably what you should do in a relationship, is make mutual decisions. But yeah, so at that point where, I no longer had anybody else to help influence my decisions, and it was all on me, that was a really pivotal point in my life where, I had this job offer to be a police officer in my hometown, like kind of thought that's what I wanted to do. And I always talk about how, when I tell this story, that was actually like one of the scariest moments of my life. I was like sitting on my mom's couch, had this job offer. I was reading it over and over again. I was clicking the pen. I was unclicking the pen.
Just anxious.
Yeah, just decision. Yeah, just anxious about the whole decision. And I just wasn't sure, if I really wanted to do it. And I sort of knew once I signed on that line, not that you can't quit a job like that, but if you're going to take a law enforcement job, especially in some smaller town, they're sort of expecting you to be there for a while.
Yeah, it's a serious commitment, man.
Yeah, and I just wasn't sure if I was ready for that commitment, I guess. So as I was sitting there, I pulled out my laptop and I just started Googling, Wildland Fire, veterans and Wildland Fire, sort of trying to find some opportunity. And this was in like April, May. So it was sort of a little late to get into, some sort of federal crew, which, I didn't know at the time. I just kind of found the first experience that showed up on Google. So through that, I found the Veteran Fire Corps with the Southwest Conservation Corps out of Durango, Colorado.
It's a nice place, man. I definitely dig Southern Colorado.
Yeah. So I applied for that and I got that. And once I sort of had that secured, I emailed the police chief and I sort of just told them, hey, I know I withdrew once, but here I am.
I bet he was pissed. He was like, this fucking guy.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to withdraw a second time and I'm going to go out to Colorado to go, learn how to be a wildland firefighter. And, I knew once I sent that email, I was pretty much committed to that decision because I'm probably not ever going to get a job there again if I wanted one.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I made that decision and, I haven't looked back since.
Well, you made the best decision that you could, for you personally.
Yeah. And so that's sort of how I got into fire, was through that experience. But how I really started in fire and how I knew Wildland Fire was even a thing, that started in 2014 when I was still in the Marine Corps. And, I was Huey crew chief at the time. We had just done some training out in El Centro or Yuma out in the desert for a couple of weeks. And this was in May. And we were flying back from the desert back to Camp Pendleton. And I'll never forget it because we had all of these 2.75 inch rockets that we never shot off. And so those were just stacked in the cabin in these boxes. And I was sitting on top of them because there was no other room for me to sit. And
you're literally riding in a helicopter on top of explosives.
Yeah. So I'm riding in a helicopter on top of explosives and I'm flying over a wildfire. So,
that's comforting.
Yeah. So I just I was like, wow, this is like a pretty incredible experience. And whatever, so I had my buddy, he was, I was like, oh, take a picture of this stuff, because I think my phone was dead at the time. And, this was, iPhones weren't as good then, they were still out, but, I don't know where that picture ever ended up, but, I wish I had it for sure. And then we get back to Camp Pendleton and we land. We think we're going to have a couple of days off because we just worked for a couple of weeks straight. And that night we got a call saying, hey, come back to the squadron. All these fires had started on base as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, we're going to go fight fire. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's a pretty cool mission to go do. Nobody had actually ever done it before. I flew in the UH-1Y, the Yankee model Huey, which is, super upgraded, dual engines, 4 blades, all sorts of avionics, weapon systems. And nobody had fought fire with it before. So, I don't know where the Bambi Buckets came from, but Bambi Buckets just sort of showed up and
they just like materialized out of thin air.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And so, we had no idea what we were doing. We just strapped these Bambi Buckets to the helicopters and we started, just flying these water dropping missions. And, I remember the 46s, the Chinooks, or the Frogs, they had this capability for a long time and they were super dialed at it. They
had a lot of practice doing it.
Yeah. So, you still see the Guard out there in California always flying them, and the Marine Corps did it as well. And so it was really funny because, we were going in for the dip and, a big difference between the military and, the other federal agencies now is, the pilots sort of do everything. But, in the military, you always fly with 2 pilots and 2 crew chiefs. So, we're doing all these water dropping missions and I'm there, like I'm an integral part of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just really funny because, we were coming down from these like 100-foot hovers going into the dip, just like super slow, not really knowing what we're doing, just trying to figure it out. And these 46s are just like doing laps around us on the fire. But a really cool thing about that experience was really just that we were the first crew to ever do it. So we really laid that foundation to where, I was working last year with one of my buddies who was still in, doing water drops on a fire, where I was now on the line, on a saw.
Yeah.
And like, we were talking back and forth and, it was just funny because like we started, together, in the Marine Corps and he's still doing it. But now I'm on the complete other side of things, which was a really cool experience.
Tables kind of turned.
Yeah. But so that was really my first intro to Wildland Fire. That was my first time ever seeing a fire. And, 12 hours after the first time I ever saw one, I was out there fighting it from the sky, which is really cool.
That's pretty badass, man.
Yeah. And, one of the really cool things about the Bambi Buckets that we used was they actually had a button that ran up from where it gets plugged in. And I actually controlled the bucket. So the pilots would just fly and, I would sort of get them on the line for the drop. And then I had a button that I would press that would open and close the bucket.
So you had like the short route of figuring out wind drift, elevation, rotor wash, all that stuff. Yeah.
So basically all the pilots would do is just wiggle the sticks and, talk on the radios and, fly the helicopter. That's all they really had to do. And then us as crew chiefs in the back, we were controlling the bucket, which was just it's a really neat capability.
That must have been so much fun, dude.
Yeah, it was super fun. And, we were working with, there was a CAL FIRE guy who was flying with us and sort of helping us out, telling us, because, honestly, like we thought, oh yeah, like let's just drop the water directly on the fire. Like that's how you put a fire out.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily. You actually want to shoot for, in front of the fire, to wet the grass and stuff in front of it. Which was funny because, I remember like one of the first drops we made, we were just like, oh yeah, we'll just drop it directly on the fire. But then you have that rush of oxygen that just, blows the fire up.
Spreads it everywhere.
Yeah. So that was definitely a learning curve. But, they still, like I said, last year, I was fighting fire down in San Diego where my buddy was flying on, making drops. So they're still doing it to this day. And so from that sort of experience, they went on to, develop a working relationship with CAL FIRE and the different agencies to where now if there's fires around Camp Pendleton, we're not restricted to just Camp Pendleton. Like they can go fight fire anywhere around California. And then now they do every single year. So that was just a really cool thing to sort of see the beginning of it, be a part of the beginning, and now see where it's gone today.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
So you got into fire in the military, well, unofficially in the military, I guess you could say, as a crew chief. And then you turned down your police job, which probably pissed off that police chief quite considerably.
Yeah.
But then you got into Wildland Fire in Durango and was with the Conservation Corps, you said?
Yep.
So from the Conservation Corps, where did you go after that?
So once I had that experience with the Conservation Corps, I guess I sort of figured out then as that season was coming to an end that, well, I'm a seasonal employee now. So what do seasonal employees do that work fire? Well, they go work ski patrol.
Yeah. Go ski bum it.
Yeah. So, the funny thing about that is I'm not actually much of a skier at all. So, I just started applying to all these resorts, around Durango. And I was like, oh, what else is a cool place? So I started applying to places around Tahoe. And I got a job actually up in Truckee, so just up the road from here. And yes, that was at Tahoe Donner, just at the cross country resort up there. And so I went from Durango to Truckee and started working ski patrol. Didn't know how to ski. Still don't really know how to ski.
But you're doing it.
But, that kind of goes back to, just creating these opportunities for yourself, even if they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was, I knew that would be an uncomfortable experience. I was living, in my truck at the time. And so for the entire season, I lived up at 7,000 feet in the back of my truck, like working ski patrol. I know there's tons of people out there in fire that have, know what I'm talking about when it comes to that experience.
Oh yeah. Van life, man.
Yeah. And that's not comfortable. Or doing a job that you have no idea how to do. But I did that job and had that experience, for a reason, because I knew I would learn a lot from it. I knew that would be uncomfortable for an entire season. I knew I'd learn a lot, meet a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And I just knew that was sort of a good route to sort of being a seasonal employee. So, I went and did that. Really enjoyed it. Definitely love Truckee, love Reno. So I'm excited to be back here for a few days.
It's a nice place, man. You got everything's within 4 hours, man. You got bitching awesome skiing, awesome hunting, awesome mountains. You got the coast. If you really haul ass to like San Francisco, you can be the coast in 4 hours. It's pretty cool, man. Yeah.
So, that whole experience, that sort of leads, into, I guess we can go from there to USA Jobs, because that's sort of really the next hurdle of the story. Is,
the nightmare that is USA Jobs.
Yeah. So that was the first time after, because, I just applied for the Conservation Corps job through like Indeed, and got it there. So, after I had that whole experience or whatever, I knew, I wanted to go federal. I think it's sort of everybody's goal wherever you start fires to sort of end up federally at some point, for most people.
Yeah.
So cue USA Jobs. So I start, building this resume on USA Jobs, applying to different places, over the winter months. And so come, time for getting referred to jobs, I didn't really get referred to that many jobs at all. So I was sort of in a weird position of, okay, like fire season's starting and, here in a couple months and I don't have a job.
Yeah.
And I did get referred to a few places, but I ended up not getting those jobs, which is whatever, basically kind of what happened was I did what you shouldn't do and put all my eggs in one basket, really got committed to one crew, had my eyes set on that, went and visited them, and it just didn't work out. They ended up not having spots.
It's like one of those critical mistakes, man. You can't, you got to be open to options, like you're saying, man.
Yeah. So I totally, kind of screwed myself on that one. So then I was sitting there, back at my desk working ski patrol and, just seeing the weeks go by and I'm like, I don't have a job. Like, what am I going to do? Kind of waiting for people to call. Nobody was calling. So then I sort of remembered that I had this email that somebody had forwarded me for these different veteran opportunities in fire. And so I started scrolling through that email, and I was like, oh yeah, it's just like one of those email chains that just gets forwarded and forwarded and forwarded.
Yeah.
And so I was just looking at these different opportunities, seeing, what they're all about. And I was like, let me just go to the top of this email chain, to the most important person, that this is originated from.
Yeah. Whoever sent it after the text of like 4 words.
Yeah. So I was like, let me just figure out who that person is, email them, explain my situation, and tell them I'm willing to go anywhere and do whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I did. And, that ended up being a very important person in the Forest Service. He's pretty high up there. And so I just sent them an email directly, explained who I was, what my intentions were, told them I'd go work on any crew anywhere. And the next day I had a job.
No shit.
Yeah. So
there's that Veterans Hiring Authority, man.
Right. And so that, that's a perfect time to that is the veteran recruitment appointment, VRA. So that's exactly how I got hired. And once I got hired that quickly, that easily, that straightforward, I was like, where has this been? Like, why did I not know this existed? Why did I just spend a year, with the Conservation Corps? Nothing against my experience there, but if I could have just gone directly into a federal job, my career would have been taken off that much faster.
Mm-hmm.
I could have gone to, those more advanced crews that I sought after, a lot faster. So that was just a really eye-opening experience of, here is this, ability to hire veterans that's out there that veterans don't know exist. So with that, I sort of just, it was very eye-opening. And so I looked back at my experience with the Conservation Corps, which I personally had a good one. And I saw the VRA and I was like, well, if veterans just knew that this existed and that they could be hired directly into federal jobs, you could fill so many jobs if they just had the education to know about the opportunity that was out there. And so that started getting me thinking of, somebody kind of has to get this information out there.
Yeah. Well, the agencies, they don't do a good job at publicizing this information.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like they promote it or anything.
Yeah. When you're getting out of the military, everybody has to go through, I think it used to be called TAPS and I think it's called TRS now, but it's just this transition readiness seminar or something. Basically it's like a week-long course where you go, they have somebody instruct it. It's pretty much about USA jobs and about writing resumes and interviewing, and you do all this different stuff. And, it's not really set up well for the person who wants to do something outside of a corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
It's really seems like it's tailored very much towards that. And then at the end of it, there's always these like little mini job fairs that they put on. So, you'll have, San Diego Sheriff's always there. You have, the Border Patrol. The National Guard's there. I saw more people in that class who desired to get out of the military than get convinced by some recruiter to then go join the National Guard.
To go guard, man.
And it's
my God.
The only difference there is because they were there.
Yeah.
Like they showed up.
Oh, it was an easy route to, gainful employment.
Right. Yeah. And that's all a lot of these people want who are transitioning out of the military is they just want to have that security of knowing of what's next, So really, I think all really these federal agencies need to do is if they just show up and, present themselves and say, hey, we're here, we exist, here's an opportunity. All you got to do is be willing to work hard. Then, you have a whole different pool of applicants to choose from.
Yeah.
But the difference is that they're just not there. They're not showing up. And so if you're not showing up, why would you expect people to show up for you?
There's that. Yeah. That's the thing, though, is like the transition between military, or the similarities between a lot of branches of the military and Wildland Fire. There's a lot of parallels right there, man. Could you expand on that? I hate drawing those comparisons from the military to Wildland Fire, but even my buddy Brent Ruby, he's a researcher out of Montana. he says that, you know, the tactical athletic nature of a wildland firefighter is a perfect analog to someone who's in the military, especially your infantry.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, I think it's a great parallel. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with drawing those. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why every single year on Camp Pendleton, you know, the BLM sends people out there to train Marines how to be firefighters, to, you know, act as like a surge resource.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they did it last year. They do it all the time. Because here are people that are physically fit. They maintain a standard, you know, they know how to work hard.
They recognize chain of command.
Yeah. Chain of command. You know, they know how to work with different resources. I'm good. So yeah, I mean, it's really a great transition, you know, especially from those people who are infantry. And so, you know, doing what I do now, I mean, that is by far the largest group that reaches out to me. It's actually probably not even close between, like, if there's any one branch that comes to me the most, it's people who are in the Marine Corps, and it's Marine Corps infantry. That's by far my number one person that reaches out to me is that person. So yeah, I mean, I think there's not a lot of jobs that, you know, somebody who is Marine infantry can get out and do.
Yeah.
You know, it's
not like you're going to get out of infantry and go be a banker. It doesn't even sound exciting. Like, after this life of, you know, kicking indoors.
Yeah. You know, and it's funny you draw that comparison because, you know, one of the first people I helped when I started Veterans in Fire was a guy who was Marine infantry who went to work on Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he worked on Wall Street for like 10 years and it just wasn't his thing. You know, he sort of just got into the motion of life, and, you know, next thing he knew, he woke up and he was like, okay, like, yeah, I had this job where I made a lot of money, but I am not fulfilled. And
wasn't finding purpose in it.
Yeah. So, you know, what he wanted to do was he wanted to go get into the dirt. He wanted to go dig fire line. You know, he wanted to work hard. He wanted to earn his paycheck. He wanted to have that camaraderie. That's the biggest thing, is the camaraderie.
Yeah.
If you're going to draw one straight line from the military over to fire, it is the camaraderie of having people work and live together. And, you know, one of the biggest things I think about the military is, you know, while you're doing it, whether it's for 4 years, 5 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever it is, it's a job, but it's also your life.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're at work, but even when you're not at work, you're still representing something. And so that's the same thing with fire is, you know, you might be at work for, you know, a lot of your time. But, you know, when you're off work, who are you spending time with? You know, you're spending time with your crew.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're on an assignment or something, you know, it's like you might be on your off time, you know, but where are you going to go? You know, it's like, so you're
not going far.
Right. So, I mean, and you're living in barracks or bunkhouses, which in the military, you know, you're living in barracks.
Yeah. So,
you know, in the military, you're traveling, you know, in, you know, these vehicles together or on some boat together or in a helicopter together. And in fire, you're traveling in vehicles together and in helicopters together and, you know, sometimes in boats together. So, you know, it's very similar, and there's so many parallels to draw from it. It's, you know, I think traditionally, you know, just like myself, where I was getting out and I was like, oh, like, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to be, you know, a police officer. Like, that's, I think for most people getting out of the military, like, that's
makes sense.
Yeah. That's sort of the number one job that people do. And, you know, I have tons of friends that got out and did that. And, you know, that's what my best friend does is that, you know, and that's great. You know, they're really good at their jobs. It was an awesome transition for them, and it just makes sense. But, you know, for everybody, you know, like myself and like, you know, all the people that I've helped, like, that's just not, you know, it's not what's their calling, I guess, you know. And I never knew that fire would be my calling. You know, I never even thought I would do fire. that was never even on the radar. But once I got into it, I was like, you know what? Like, I like this.
I'm good. I'm good here. I like this.
Yeah. You know, it fulfills, you know, that need for camaraderie. You know, it fulfills that, you know, wanting to travel and have different experiences. It's hard work. It's prideful work. You know, the pay might not be the best, but you know, it wasn't in the military either. So
better not. That might be changing though, hopefully soon.
Yeah. And, you know, definitely like all about that stuff, you know, and there's so many good things that are happening, you know, and that's awesome. But, you know, I think with the military and with fire, you know, obviously we all want to make more money. We all want to have better benefits, you know, and, you know, hopefully all that stuff happens, and it seems like it is.
Yep. Grassroots is definitely cooking up a stir. That's for sure.
Yeah. You know, definitely over the last couple of weeks, you know, it's been fun to watch and, you know, fun to be a part of. But, you know, if you really strip it down, like you probably didn't join the military to, you know, make a shit ton of money, and you probably didn't want to get into Wildland Fire to make a shit ton of money. No. You know, there's just, you want to do it out of, you know, the kindness in your heart to want to serve others. And, you know, that's the same as the military as well. You know, I don't think anybody joins the military, you know, with necessarily, you know, bad intentions. You know, I sure didn't serve with anybody who had those intentions. And, you know, I'd hope that's not why people are joining. And I don't think people, you know, join join Wildland Fire because they're like, oh, I get to go light the forest on fire. No. You know, like,
I mean, that's just like a fringe benefit of the job, I guess you could say.
Right. Yeah. So,
because it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, but it really comes down to, you know, wanting to serve others. And so that's the whole premise on what I started Veterans and Fire for.
Yeah.
Was, you know, I think that's like the first line is service to others. And that's something that I've really tried to live my life by, you know, over the last couple of years, is serving others. You know, I always say that there is no greater service than service to others. And so that's actually something that I lost when I got out of the military. Was I started doing things that were very much based on myself and personal gain. And I really lost that sense of service. And I think when you lose that, you know, it's really easy to fall into this realm of unhappiness, because, you know, there's so many greater things out there than doing things for yourself. So one of the first things that I sort of did was I organized this charitable event to walk from Vermont to Maine, down this one road. It was 171 miles that I did in 3 days. The whole plan was to do it in 72 hours. And I did. And so, you know, through doing that, I raised money for this organization called Honor Flight New England that flies World War II veterans, Korea veterans, and terminally ill veterans down to Washington, D.C. to visit their memorials.
That's badass.
Yeah. And I raised something like $6,500, $7,000 or something in 72 hours doing that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And so, you know, that was a pretty gnarly experience. You know, my feet blew up like, you know, footballs, you know, from traveling that amount of distance in that short of time. And, you know, it was definitely not in the shape that I'm in now, to be able to do that. But, you know, when you start to do things for reasons other than just personal reasons, you can achieve so much more. And that was the biggest thing was, you know, when I'm like walking, you know, through the White Mountains at 2:00 in the morning, you know, up and down these hills, you know, and this was also like October. So like it wasn't warm.
I could imagine it being pleasant.
Yeah, it wasn't pleasant. I mean, the views were nice, but like, you know, when it got miserable, it was pretty easy to fall back on the fact that I was doing this for other people. And the whole reason for doing it was to serve others. And so when I finished that, you know, that kind of became like this, you know, I got like this following. I felt like Forrest Gump a little bit, you know, people were waiting out at the end of their driveways, you know, the news was there, you know, and, you know, I think the whole story got over like 1 million views on Facebook.
That's dope, man.
Yeah. But that was really my transition back into serving others. And once I sort of did that, I was like, man, like, I was in bed for the next 4 days after that, but it felt so good to do something again for other people. And so then getting into fire, having the experiences that I did in fire, and then starting Veterans in Fire, that's why I really wanted, it first and foremost be about serving others, because here you are having people who are committed to serving others in the military, and that is their goal, that is their mission. That's why they signed the dotted line. That's why they took an oath. Their oath was, to, protect and serve the Constitution. And when they're going to get out, a lot of people, it's like they're like, just because your service ends doesn't mean your service to others has to. And I think for a lot of people, that's where they sort of lose track, is they start to think, oh, okay, like it's time to like focus on myself. It's time to like go to college and, or do this or do that. And they sort of lose that sense of service.
Yeah.
And, I think fire gives that back. And that's a really rewarding thing for people. And I think that's what draws people so much to fire, especially once they get in. They're like, wow, like, this is so similar to what I did in the military, not necessarily, maybe not the job itself, when it gets down to the specifics, but just in the act of the fact that you're doing something that's bigger than yourself, you're doing things that benefits other people more than yourself. And, you're out there suffering, with, 19 other people, on a crew, and, you're out there for 14 days at a time, off for 2, out there for 14 days at a time.
Oh yeah.
And, that's just like a deployment. That's just like being out in the field, whatever it is, I know there's a lot of like old school people in fire that call, what we'd probably call a role, deployment, and I think that's because I think back when, there was not a war going on, that was sort of what a deployment was to a lot of people, was going on these like fire deployments.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why you see sort of like some of the older people in fire that still call it that.
Well, I know that we derived a lot of our SOPs and our lingo directly from the military. I mean, shit, the triple nickels basically started they're like the grandfathers of the smoke jumping program even.
Yeah.
So makes a lot of sense. But so now let's break down Veterans in Fire, your organization, what you do. So how does it work? Like, what do we do to get more veterans out that are transitioning out of the military into something that's, like you said, a dedication of service to others?
Yeah. I mean, so the biggest thing to get more people is, we as, an agency, whatever agency that is, you have to put yourself out there. The biggest thing, like I kind of said, a few minutes ago, is, if you're going to expect somebody to show up, you have to show up.
And that's where you come in.
Right. Yeah. And so like, that's where I've come in. And so, that's why I get these, some of these text messages that say, you've helped me more in 30 minutes than the VA has in 10 years.
Oh, damn.
And you get text messages like that. And that's what keeps me going to continue to do it, is stuff like that. But the biggest thing is like, I'm showing up for these people, during this off season, this became my full-time job. I didn't go back to ski patrol like this past off season. I was out in Hawaii. That was nice, but the whole time I was out there, I only went in the ocean 2 times.
Yeah.
Like I was out there for, close to 3 months. And
didn't you run around the island too?
Well, that was my whole plan, was to run around the island. That's what sort of got me out there.
Yeah.
But, that's the whole thing with like, putting yourself out there, like that's why I went there. That was the intention. But then that's right around the time where Veterans in Fire really started to take off. And, I never expected it to take off the way that it did. I was just expected it to be some Instagram page and, whatever.
You'd occasionally help like the 1 or 2 people that like hit you up, and, you'd guide them through the USA jobs process, and you didn't expect it to blow up.
Right. Yeah. And, that's where, just kind of like we were saying, having an open mind to like these different experiences. Like, I'm sure, you go back a couple of years, you probably never thought you'd be hosting a podcast.
No.
Right. Exactly. So here you are, I never thought that I would be, some, founder or whatever of an organization, that helps, now at this point, hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. That's so crazy to me. But at the same time, it's really not that crazy because nobody else was doing it. So
you found your niche.
Yeah. And, to me, that's actually become more rewarding to me than fire itself, is getting people into fire. So, just kind of get back on track of what I do. Basically really where it all started was, so we're actually right now, like I just kind of hit like the 1 year anniversary of it is sort of this month. There's really no specific day unless I just go off like the first Instagram post or something.
Yeah.
Or when I announced that I had like won the Smokey Generation award, which is really, that's kind of like where it started. So
shout out to Bethany, by the way, dude. She's rad.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's helped me so much. I mean, I've had plenty of phone calls with her where I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, like that's, I called her multiple times this off season. I'm just like, yeah, like I'm on the phone 16 hours a day. Like,
yeah,
what do I do? Like how do I keep doing this? How do I take this to the next level? And she's been so awesome. Just
she's a wealth of knowledge, man. And she's a wealth of like assistance to the fire community.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, and so I guess I'll start there. With the whole Veterans and Fire thing was, I sort of applied, for, that grant, to win that grant. And I just sort of, typed up this, application or whatever, and sort of explained, that what I wanted to do was, have this Instagram page called Veterans and Fire and just tell the stories of the veterans that are in fire. Because, for me to get into fire was just a very confusing process. Like we sort of covered, just from, starting with the Conservation Corps and then USA Jobs not working out, then me emailing some super important person, through some random email chain and getting hired through VRA the next day. And just like, it was just like such a weird way to get to where I am now. And so it wasn't super direct. It didn't, it was sort of a years long process to where it really all started to make sense. And so, I was like, I know there's plenty of veterans that do this job. Like, let me sort of go around, interview people, have them tell their story. Then other people can see that. And through reading other people's stories, they can be like, oh, I could go this direction. I could go the apprentice direction. I could, go on do a shot crew. I could go through the Conservation Corps, like whatever it is. There's there's all these different routes, and so many people took different routes to get to where they are. So I just thought that would be a really good experience for people to, I guess, learn what other people did. And there was really no good resource out there for this. So I was like, I'll just be that resource. And then, so that's what I did. And then, obviously last year's season got pretty insane.
Yeah, it did.
I think, my crew, we spent, 100, 120 days or something on the road. So it kind of took a backseat to, just doing my job in fire, which naturally during the fire season, like it's kind of hard to prioritize anything other than fire.
Yeah. Well, you don't have a choice, man. I mean, it's a seasonal job, but you're so concentrated in that 6 to 8 months out of the year that you have no time for anything else.
Yeah, totally. And I try to tell people that, who are hitting them up now. So if you are somebody who hits me up now or after this, if I don't get back to you, like I will at some point. And, it's just, you just get busy, go and roll from roll. But, if I don't get back to you, just keep hitting me up until I do get back to you, because I will
eventually.
At some point. Yeah, eventually.
It's hard to keep up, man. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But so I guess after after last season, I wasn't really sure what the direction I wanted to take Veterans and Fire, but I knew it had traction. Like there was enough interest, gained over, 2,500 followers in its first year. Like that's pretty good.
It's pretty impressive, man.
So yeah, I sort of just knew there was something there. There was enough people hitting me up to where I was like, there's there's something here. And so really what started, I guess, the blow up of it was, I had one person hit me up who's really turned into one of my best friends now. And he was like, hey dude, I see all this work you're doing with Veterans and Fire. I've been following you for a while on Instagram. Like the job looks really awesome. Like I would love to do something like that. So he's like, can you help me sort of get into fire?
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, dude, like, sure. Let me reach out to some people. And I reached out to the person who initially got me hired, and then they connected me with somebody else. And so, what a lot of people don't know is that the Forest Service actually has a veteran hiring program. It's called Lead Forward Veterans Hiring Program. And, what they do, they're at a Region 1, is a veteran contacts them, at some point during the off season, and they use veteran recruitment appointment to fill open positions throughout Region 1. And, that's a super awesome program. That's, one of the more notable people who's gone through that is David Goggins.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he got into fire, was through the Lead Forward program. So, but the issue is if you didn't know it existed, you wouldn't know it existed.
Yeah. It's not like we were saying, man, it's not like it's like promoted. It's like a hidden program.
Right. Yeah. So, I worked with, directly with, the individuals who started that. And, through working with them, I was able to get, this one person a job and, in Region 1. And then once I started building that connection, the people that Lead Forward were like, hey, if you've got more veterans, like we've got spots that we can fill. So, then cue the outreaches on social media. I started just putting them out there. Hey, are you a veteran who wants to do fire? Like I can help you out. Just, give me a call. So I started just fielding phone call. And as I would get phone calls and, I would sort of not interview these people, but just be a person that they could talk to about fire and ask questions. Like, I'm not anything special. I'm a GS4, I'm a GS4 seasonal employee. And, so it's honestly like that's a really good position for me to be in because I can talk to these people and they have no, they don't feel like I'm somebody that's like super important, which is good because they can just connect with me on a personal level.
Yeah.
I tell
You're
them,
just a dude that's.
Yeah, I'm just a dude on the phone.
Yeah.
And that's, the one thing I tell everybody is just consider me your friend in fire. I'm nothing more than that. I'm just going to be your friend in fire who helps guide you through the process.
Yeah. You kind of fell into like a liaison, I guess, role.
Right. Yeah. So, really the biggest thing was kind of just like word of mouth of where like, I helped one person and they would tell like, oh, I've got like 3 buddies that like, are also interested. Like, could I give them your number? I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so, that just kind of led to things taking off. And then from there, I think I really just sort of took on a bulk of the, I guess, not the work for Lead Forward. I mean, they did all the work with getting people hired. I was just, like you said, kind of a liaison for them where I would talk to the individuals. I'd have about an hour-long phone call with every single person. I would get their resume, their DD-214. I'd look both those things over, make sure they were good.
Yeah.
And as long as those were good, then I would then forward those to the people over at Lead Forward and they would get them plugged in with jobs. And so that went on for, probably like 2 strong months where it was like, I mean, it seemed like
resume after resume.
Oh yeah. I mean, it seemed like every single day, there were multiple people getting hired, like I said, I mean, there were literally days where I was on the phone for 16 hours a day. Like, I was in Hawaii, so like, it wasn't a bad place to be on the phone all day, standing out on my, lanai overlooking the ocean, but
sounds horrible.
Yeah. But, I definitely went out there with the intentions of, circumnavigating the island on foot. I went out there with the intentions of, doing a lot of surfing and, snorkeling and, all that typical stuff. But, it didn't work out that way, which is fine because, I am where I am now with Veterans and Fire because of all those, just countless hours of, putting in the work. And so, I'd be up at 3:30 in the morning to the first phone calls, coming in from the East Coast because,
Yep.
the time change. And that was fine. Like, I loved it. I was having so much fun with it, just talking to all these different people, hearing all these different stories. Like, I have a story that's pretty interesting, but I mean, the stories that I've gotten to hear are just incredible. And the people from just all different walks of life that I've been able to help has been incredible too. So yeah, basically what happened was pretty much filled every position that we could fill in Region 1 to the point where, the people over at Lead Forward were just like, yeah, there's
more room.
Yeah, there's no more room to plug people in. And I was like, well, like, I need more than, like, I need contacts. Like, I need people that I can talk to.
Which is cool because there's a ton of veteran crews out there, veteran specific crews out there. I know you got, I believe Lakeview is one of them. You got Folsom. Yeah. Folsom Veterans Crew and a slew of other ones out there.
Yeah. There's all kinds of crews up there. Billings got a crew. Aravaipa's got a crew down in Arizona. Ventana Hotshot crew, they're primarily a veteran crew.
Vegas Valley.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Shout out to my boys in Vegas.
Yeah, no, I love the people down there. I actually went and hand delivered them a care package on my way out to Idaho this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was super cool to just kind of get face to face with those guys. But yeah, so, after I sort of like reached the limit of Region 1, I started getting connected with some crews up in Oregon, filled a bunch of spots there. I won't name names, but one of the most eye-opening experiences that I had was there was a crew up in Oregon, I believe, that it's, supposed to be a veteran crew, like 20 people. They lost funding. They'd already sort of told 20 people that they were going to have jobs, and they no longer had spots for 20 people. Then I had spots for 10 people. And so here I am, just some GS4, and I'm having some soup call me like, hey, like, this is super embarrassing, but, I've got 10 people who I told had jobs who no longer have jobs.
That's not good.
But by the end of that day, 10 people had jobs elsewhere.
No shit.
Yeah.
So they're all good.
They're all good. Every single one of them got a job.
Good.
So, that was one of the first experiences where I was like, damn, like, I've got like some impact here. Like, this is working. So yeah, from there, then, it just sort of seemed like it went from Region 1 more west, and then sort of worked its way down to California. Started, having some contacts with different FMOs around California. And really that's been the best route, is that I speak directly with the FMOs of the forest. And then they sort of appoint me some contact on their forest, and they give me a list of jobs that they have open that they need to fill.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get the information, where's it located? Do they have housing? Which type of crew is it? And then as long as I get that information, I can then create these Instagram posts, Facebook posts, LinkedIn posts, Reddit posts, whatever, I've done it all.
The social media game, it'll drown you, man.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. So, get that information. I put it out there, and then I have people, hit me up and inquire about it, talk to them on the phone. And then I forward their information off directly to that point of contact or the FMO, like whoever it is, whoever that contact is, whoever they decide they want it to be, whether it's themselves or, somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I would say vast majority of the time, those people get jobs. Does it work out for everybody? Like, no. But, I think since February was when I probably got my first person hired, was in around February timeframe. And from February to now, we're over 150 people.
No shit.
Yeah.
Damn.
So definitely, like, I served over 200 veterans, because sometimes people hit me up and like, oh, not this year, but maybe next year, or, oh, I'm going to go structure instead. I got this opportunity, that opportunity, whatever. But yeah, definitely over 150 like confirmed people who, are working for the Forest Service or, Bureau of Land Management on fire crews this year.
That's a hell of an accomplishment, man. And that's that thing. You're still paying it forward from your experience in the military through fire. And now you're still in fire, but you're also paying it forward and getting these other people their foot in the door. It's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, it's been just so rewarding. Cause I mean, I don't know if there's anything more rewarding than providing somebody the opportunity to continue to serve others, and that's really what all these people want is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so to sort of be that person that can facilitate that is a very empowering experience and a very inspiring experience, and so, and what I've done, with the vast majority of people, or at least I've tried to, is pretty much anybody who I get hired or really anybody who reaches out, I've sent them stickers and like a handwritten letter. And so one really cool story from that is, there's one individual from the East Coast who got a job in fire. He's working up in Montana now. But his father actually like passed away throughout the time frame that we were talking. But, I wrote him this really nice handwritten letter, sent him this letter and these stickers, just congratulating him on getting a job. And, he went back to his house or whatever to kind of like pack up the rest of the things. And as he was there, and he sent me this whole text about it, but as he was there, the mailman, wherever, like pulled up and, handed him this letter. And so he was like, on his way, like, I think to the funeral, he said, and he got that letter. And he just like, I think he told me, how like he's going to always keep that letter, and how like it was just like so important to him and so impactful. And so like just doing a small thing like that, it's like doing small things for people, it really matters, and you don't know who you're going to impact. Like you don't know at what point that person's going to call you, looking for an opportunity, or when they're going to get that letter, or, when you're just going to be there for somebody. Like you just don't know like what that person's going through. So I think just like keeping that in mind, that, as long as you are sort of going through life with good intentions and, serving others and just doing the right thing, like, you might save somebody's life just by being a friend to them, some person that you just don't even know. So, I mean, that's been one of the most eye-opening experiences is, these people who, I could go on and on of these stories, and so like one of the other ones is, there was this individual who he was building shower stalls up in Oregon. And, when he first reached out to me, he was like, oh yeah, like, I don't know if I'll make enough money in fire, to really do it, but like, I really want to do it. And, so of course, that's the money thing again, that's keeping a lot of people out of the job. But, I had probably a 4-hour conversation with just this one person on the phone. And I was like, you know what, man, like you reached out to me for a reason. Like you didn't reach out to me because, you're necessarily happy with where you're at. Like you want some different opportunity, or else you wouldn't have taken the time to find my phone number to, have a conversation with me. And, so I was like, if you want to do fire, like give it a shot, like see what you think. If you don't like it after a year, like
it's not like you can't move on.
Yeah. Like I'm sure that job will still be there for you, or like some other opportunity. And so, that dude's working on, one of the vet crews out of Oregon that hires a lot of veterans. And he loves it. Like he sent me a picture the other day with, I think him and somebody else on the crew, like standing on some fire together.
Just and hero shit shot.
Yeah.
Like I love that stuff, man.
But like just loving it, and like, I was just like, I was so happy for him, just to see that. And I love that, I love when people tag the page, in posts, or, hopefully soon I'm going to get back to like just sharing people's stories, because now there's so many people that I've helped get into fire who all have these unique stories. But it's just so powerful to see that, just what somebody, like that individual, like they took a risk, they weren't sure if they were going to be able to, pay their bills or, live the lifestyle, but, now they're doing it. And, I think they're going to go on to a very successful career, in this job. And, that all it takes is just, a lot of times somebody just being there.
Yeah.
So, but that's again, like that's showing up, like I had to show up for that person, I invested a lot of time into that person, and, does the Forest Service or the different agencies have, the capability to spend that amount of time investing into one person, I don't know, but maybe there's somebody out there who's been doing this for over a year now who could get paid to be doing this.
Subtle,
Not pointing fingers or anything, but
Well, that brings up a larger point though, as far as like recruitment and retention. I mean, not only the pay it needs some work, obviously. That's being worked on behind the scenes by, grassroots and a couple other organizations like NIFI, the union, the Forest Service Union. But I just wish that if you take an example for like CAL FIRE, their PR game is on point, man. They take every opportunity to promote, recruit, tell the story of their organization. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around why the DOI and the U.S. Forest Service, so the Department of the Interior, all the agencies under that umbrella, and then the U.S. Forest Service, why don't they take those opportunities, man? They're out there and people like you are doing it. Why aren't they promoting this?
Yeah. And that's like
blows my mind.
That's one of the crazy things is, and I kind of hope I would love to have like some role like that in the future. Because I've had people from colleges all over the country that are like, hey, we have this like veteran group, or club or whatever at this college, and all these people are like interested in fire. They're doing these like fire science, degrees or like whatever. And, I've had people literally ask me like, hey, can you come speak at my college?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'd love to,
but it's fire season.
Yeah. But it's fire season or whatever, but it's like, just that, it's like you could go, I could, if I had like some budget to work with, I could set up, dozens of colleges, dozens of military bases. And, if I was able to, recruit over 150 people into this job in a matter of, 4 to 6 months through an Instagram page, like what would I be able to do, in an entire year with some sort of budget and an actual plan and material and support from the organizations in which I'm serving.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it sucks that, that I'm out here like doing this, and not getting paid to do it. But at the same time, I don't really care. Like I'm going to continue to do it regardless, because it matters. It matters to me. It matters to the individuals that it's serving, and it matters to the agency, who's getting, good individuals that want to be there. I couldn't even put a number on the amount of money that I've spent, of my own personal money.
I feel you, man.
But yeah, I'm sure you know what it's all about, kind of starting something,
starting a business is hard, man.
Yeah, it's extremely hard. I know we've had conversations in the past, sort of over the last year, where I've been like, dude, like, what do I do? Like, this is crazy. I have no idea. I'm so over my head. But we're figuring it out, and, you're going to continue to do what you're doing. I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. And, who knows where it goes, but, I'm definitely not going to stop doing it regardless of any support that I do get or don't get.
Yeah. And I'm in the same boat too. And not the same lane necessarily, but a kind of similar realm is all the jobs that I post for recruitment, man.
Yeah.
It's all word of mouth. It's like, hey man, can you post this for us? We're dying on numbers right now. We are not meeting our hiring thresholds right now. And someone like you who specializes in veterans with the Veterans Recruitment Authority,
Veteran Recruitment Appointment.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And that it's a really good pathway for veterans to get into the government because you're favored. You have, a point scale, you have your veterans preference. It's like a no-brainer, man. Like why aren't agencies, if we're sucking on recruitment and retention, why aren't they taking these opportunities like your organization? And it just blows my mind, man.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's like veteran recruitment, I guess I don't know if we really explained it or not in depth, but, essentially what veteran recruitment appointment is it's a federal appointment that pretty much summed up allows veterans with a resume and a DD-214 with either an honorable discharge or a general under honorable conditions. It allows them to completely bypass the USA jobs process and get hired directly into a federal job.
Yeah.
And so it's a direct hiring authority. So basically what that means, and that's not, it actually doesn't exist just in fire. Like it exists across the entire federal government.
Yeah.
So pretty much any veteran who knows the right person, you know, and there's an open job can just be like, hey, like, here's my resume. Here's, you know, I'm qualified to do this job. Like, you know, here's my DD-214 that shows that I, you know, honorably served my country, and they can just be directly hired into that job. And, you know, does that kind of like suck for, you know, the people who don't have that opportunity? Like, yeah, you know, I mean, I know like when I first got into fire, you know, I worked when I was with the Conservation Corps, you know, all sorts of different places. And, you know, I remember we went and worked on one of our roles with this individual who like had very strong opinions about veterans, you know, in fire and like the advantages that they get. And, you know, I understand that argument. Like, you know, that sucks that there's, you know, a group of people that get more of an advantage than other people. But at the same time too, you know, you're having a person who's, you know, 22, 24, 30 years old, you know, who has to completely start over, you know? So if you were somebody who got into fire at 18, 19, 20 years old, you know, you could be, you know, 22 and be on a hotshot crew.
Yeah.
You know, so like you've sort of had that foundation that you could start from in fire to continue to, you know, prosper in your fire career. But somebody who, you know, went and served, like they had these valuable experiences and they know how to work hard. You know, and that's just the way it is. Like, yeah, like they, you know, there's an advantage to it, but at the same time, like how much is that advantage really being taken advantage of? You know, obviously not very much, you know, or else, you know, I'd probably be out of business if, you know, it was just that easy. Like it's still not that easy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's,
we still got to interview for it. It's not like they just, oh, you're hired.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you still have to be a good qualified candidate.
And if you're a skater, they're not going to pick you up.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, I'm not saying that like, you know, out of every single person that I've, you know, helped get a job, that they're all like the best person in the world. Like, you know, I would hope that they are. You know, I try to do my due diligence with each individual. And, you know, if they're not somebody who shows, you know, work ethic or, you know, a serious commitment, then, yeah, I'm like, you know, maybe you should look somewhere else, you know, and that sucks. Like, you know, having to tell people no, but like, that's just the way it is sometimes.
Well, it's not for everybody. It takes a certain individual to do this.
Right. Yeah. And it's one thing, you know, like, oh yeah, like I'm interested in fire. You know, the biggest thing is like, there's a lot of people that hit me up and they don't even know that Wildland Fire is Wildland Fire. You know, it's like they think this is, you know, a red truck and, you know, driving around the city. And I'm like, no, like you're going to be gone for 14 days at a time, away from your family, working for 6 months straight, you know, 224 hours in a 2-week period. Like, you know, you're going to get crushed.
Yeah.
And
once you start explaining the harsh realities of the nature of the beast, I mean, it probably turns a lot of people off.
Yeah. You know, there's definitely some people who are like, you know, like I got this other gig actually. You know?
Nah, dog, I'm good.
I'm like, hey man, that's cool. You know, like no harm, no foul. Like I'm glad that we were able to have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll field conversations with anybody. You know, I'm really just trying to be somebody who's out there just, you know, educating that specific group of people, you know, and helping them out if they want help, you know, and if they don't want help, then, well, that's fine too.
Hey man, it's not for everybody, like you're saying. And they want to help, they got to take the opportunity to reach out to your organization. So Veterans in Fire. And yeah. You know, and if they do reach out and, you know, it's like I said, obviously it is fire season and, you know, I am employed. So, you know, this is the rough part.
Yeah. You know, unfortunately, like the whole Veterans in Fire thing is not my full-time job. You know, it's really not even a job because I think in order for it to be a job, you have to get paid. You know, but, you know, it's definitely, yeah, it's hard to manage both. It's one of those things where, you know, I try to keep my actual job and Veterans in Fire separate just because
you kind of have to.
yeah, I can't be like, out answering my phone. Like, oh yeah, just hold up, let me just step off the line real quick, and take this phone call. Like, that's not gonna fly too well. So yeah, I mean, if somebody reaches out, and I don't get back to you in a timely manner, hey, hit me back up, do your own work, your own research, if you really want, like, you can find my number somewhere, my number's out there, my email's out there. There's plenty of ways, to get my attention if that person wants it, and cause it's like, honestly, there's a lot of people who like send me a message. Like I'll post these opportunities and I'm like, hey, message me if you're interested. And people message me and they say interested.
Yeah. And you got to be a self-starter, man. If you got the attitude like that, where I'm going to do all the work for you, you're not going to be a good fit for the fire service, period.
Yeah. And I'm like a lot of those times, like I'll just like respond with like a question mark, like, or sometimes I don't even respond. Like, okay, well, like, what are you interested in? Like, how interested are you?
Yeah.
Like you need to like, and that honestly, like, that's been one of those things where like, when I first started this, like I was having like super long conversations with every single person, and everything was super, super individualized. And, I could really, work diligently with each individual person to do what was going to best suit them. As things have, started to take off, like it's still just me doing everything. So that's become harder and harder. So, when I have these people, who are like, hey, I want to, only work in SoCal, which, that's a very large group of people that hit me up. That's just, there's a huge population of veterans there.
Yeah. Well, it's also your, highest concentration of population as well. It's going to be hard to compete. Yeah.
So, that's, and that's one of those things where it's like, all right, cool. Like, that's great. I'll do my best. Like I will send, your information to, people in SoCal.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I tell people like, hey, you might want to look other places, just like everybody else who applies for jobs in fire. Like, if you have to work in nowhere, Oregon or Wyoming or something for a season, like, well, that's just what you have to do. Like, you have to be willing to take that job. Like that first job's probably not going to be the best job.
Probably not.
But, if you go and you work one season, in some not ideal place, the windows of opportunity that open up for you the following seasons are unreal. I mean, I know just like me applying for jobs going into this year, I applied every place that I applied, I got a call from, so that's just like, you got to put your time in, whether, you start off as, a VRA applicant or you start off just through the USA jobs process. Like, it doesn't really matter where you start, but you got to be willing to just accept the job that you can get, and if some other opportunity, a big thing that I see is, people will accept these opportunities that I post. And then, 2 weeks later, some other FMO will hit me up and be like, hey, I've got this other opportunity. And those other people are like, oh, hey, like I already accepted this one job, but this opportunity would be cool too. Can I throw my name in for that? Like, you can, but just know, if you go withdraw from that other crew that you've already, committed to, that might not
putting them in the bad spot, man, because now they're down a person.
Right. And then it's like, well, now I try to like find, either somebody to fill that spot, or now that crew's, one person short. And, if you made that commitment, well, you sort of have, you have an obligation to sort of fulfill that commitment, not that you can't say no or you can't withdraw. I mean, you can quit anytime you want, but if you're committed, to your crew and, you do a good job for them, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have your back moving forward. You don't need to accept one job and then like never leave that job. I've gone to a new crew every single year.
Well, that's the thing about fire, man, is there's a wide world of opportunity out there, and it's just up to you to, find those jobs, 1, and 2, make the commitment to try something new or in a new duty location, man. Sitting there and stagnating in one particular duty station, man, it's going to be a hard time. It's going to be a long time before you move up, especially.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. These programs are out there and you've got the inside knowledge. And since we're coming to the end of the show here, where can we find you, man?
Yeah. So, you can find me at Veterans and Fire on Instagram. That's definitely the main place where I operate, at Veterans and Fire on Instagram. It's also on Facebook and LinkedIn and, pretty much all the social medias. But yeah, definitely the easiest way is just through the Instagram and messaging me there. And if you go ahead and do that and you want my number and you want to have a phone conversation, we can cross that bridge when we get there. I'm not going to publicly put my phone number out there because it's just my personal number. But I'm willing to have a conversation with anybody, anytime, whoever wants to help. So yeah, definitely just at Veterans and Fire on Instagram. That's the primary place where I do all the outreaches and have all the conversations with people there. So also the email is, if you don't have Instagram, it's veteransandfire@gmail. So some people just come through there as well. But yeah, one of those two places. And if you want to have, a more in-depth conversation, we can set up a phone call. We can just message back and forth, whatever it is. If you were to reach out and, you don't get a response back from me, wait a few days, hit me back up. Could be on assignment, might be out of service. And then, yeah, definitely, one thing to note, it's July. So, if you're hitting me up, after this episode and, you want a job on some hotshot crew in Southern California, yeah, well, so does everybody else. So
you're gonna have to wait till next season.
Yeah, your best bet is gonna be wait till next season. If you're somebody who's getting out in, the military in 2023, 2024, because I've had a surprising amount of people hit me up from, that are that far out. Hey, go ahead and hit me up. Get your name in my head. But just know that there's really not much that I can do for you until you have a DD-214 in hand. But if you're somebody who's ready to go to work and you've got a DD-214 and a resume, shoot me a message and, we'll see what we can do. I know there's places that are still hurting, so there might be some spots that can still get filled. But, as every day that passes goes on, it's going to be closer and closer to, working on stuff for next year. So yeah, at Veterans and Fire on Instagram, hit me up and, we'll chat there.
Oh yeah, man. Well, at the end of the show, I always extend the opportunity for you to give a shout out to a homie, a hero, mentor. What do you got for us?
Yeah. So, definitely a shout out to, I'll just use first names here. They'll know who they are, but Greg, who helped me get my first job, Dan, who's been an integral part of this whole thing, Dan and Ed, the first person I got hired, Colton, shout out to you, man. I know it's your first season, and all those other people out there who's their first season who I helped, shout out to all of you, who are out there. Some of you have gone on fires already. Some of you haven't, but your time will come. You'll get out there, you'll have late nights on the line and, it'll all be worth it soon. So, just hang in there and, keep a positive attitude and, enjoy the fact that you were back to serving others, because that's what this job's all about. And, that's what life is really all about, is serving others.
Oh yeah, man. Well, Blake, thank you for what you do, man. And yeah, keep helping these people out there and keep helping them get in their job there. It's pretty awesome what you do.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, man. Thanks for being on the show, brother.
Of course, man.
Later, guys. And boom, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, another episode of the Anchor Point Podcast is in the books with my good buddy, Blake Toth from Veterans in Fire. If you guys have a DD-214 and a resume, like you said, definitely swing by his Instagram page and hit him up, because he's got a lot of connections. He's networked extensively in the fire community to connect veterans with fire programs. So if you guys are looking for a new career once you get out of the military, well, check out Veterans in Fire. Blake, once again, thank you for being on the show, man. I definitely appreciate what you're doing. And yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. I'd love to have you back on the show once we get back closer to hiring season. So once again, man, thanks. Special shout out to our sponsors. We've got Mystery Ranch. They make the finest damn packs for fire, but not only that, they make all of your load-bearing solutions. Mystery Ranch, built for the mission. We've got Hotshot Brewery, purveyors of the finest damn coffee in the fire game, and it's kick-ass coffee for a kick-ass cause. So go over to www.hotshotbrewing.com and check them out. We've got the Ass Movement. If you got a problem pooper on your crew, well, you might want to direct them over to thefirewild.com and check out the Ass Movement to educate him or her on proper poo-bearing etiquette. And last but not least, we have got the Smokey Generation. And actually, on this episode, well, Blake was a recipient of one of those Smokey Generation grants. So, Bethany, thank you very much for your organization and, supporting good causes like this. You got a kick-ass organization. If you guys want to find out more, go over to www.wildfireexperience.org and check it out. For the rest of you guys all know the game. Happy 4th of July. Stay safe. Stay savage. Peace.